thanks for joining me. You're watching Notepad with me, Ibrahim Sani. Today I'm at Glasshouse Seputeh because Stripe, one of the world's most important payment systems right now, is launching for the first time in Malaysia. They have been in this country for a few months already. They've been partnering with some partners already in Malaysia. So I'm just going to be speaking with the founder or the co-founder of Stripe, John, about the rollout in Malaysia and why this is a big deal for them and for the country. Always remember, Stripe is a way for businesses to transact and make payments across the internet, and you can read more about their literature online. I just want to get to the bottom of how Stripe can actually impact the businesses in Malaysia. Here's my conversation with John. Take a look. So Stripe is launching in Malaysia. Let's talk a little bit about Stripe. What is it all about?
Yeah, so we help internet businesses accept money from their customers. And so this was something that, I had started an internet business before Stripe, had found it was really hard to just, once you've built an internet product, accept money from people all over the world. I think what we've seen of late is an explosion of internet-powered services, right, for commerce, be it Deliveroo or Grab or, Fashion Valet here in Singapore, or sorry, excuse me, here in Malaysia, and, or Amazon or someone like this. There's an explosion in all these exciting services, but oftentimes just accepting money from your customers is the hardest part, so Stripe makes that easy.
So why is it different, or how is it different from PayPal or any of the existing services out there?
Yeah, so PayPal is a wallet for consumers to be able to pay businesses, and it's one way. But think about it, if you're a business, so if you and me decided to team up and we launched a startup here tomorrow and we were selling in the local market, we would need to be able to accept multiple ways of our customers paying. We'd want them to be able to pay with a bank transfer over FPX, we'd want them to be able to pay with a card, we'd want them maybe to be able to use a wallet, and so that's the problem that Stripe solves. It's the platform for running your business. And oftentimes, maybe the business is even a little bit more complex than just ringing up your customers. So we have a customer here, Shaves to You, and they're a subscription razor service. And so there, Stripe can provide the subscription billing engine to handle billing on an ongoing basis.
Let's talk also about the pain on setting it up. How easy or difficult it is for companies to sign up with Stripe, particularly when they have little to no knowledge about what your business is all about.
Yeah, so that's honestly part of what got Stripe off the ground, was we found that traditional banks or financial institutions made it very cumbersome to start selling online. So you can imagine there's all these mountains of paperwork and you're filling them out, you're waiting weeks or months for the paperwork to kind of wind its way through the bank, and you're all wondering, what's taking so long? And so in the case of Stripe, we want things to move at internet speed. And so you have to be able to kind of sign up and instantly start using Stripe to be able to accept payments. And so that simplicity and that speed, we actually think it's really important, because these internet businesses, often it's maybe it's at the very beginning, you look at it, it's two people, two founders that have a good idea, and they want to be able to test and start getting customers really quickly. They don't have the time to be able to wait for weeks. And so that's a very important part of the Stripe product philosophy.
This solution that you bring about, it's been around for quite a bit. You started this business in 2010. Why did it took you guys so long to get here in Kuala Lumpur? Was there any particular, impetus for you guys to wait before you started rolling out this business in Malaysia?
Sure, so we started in the United States and then we expanded to Europe, and now we're starting to expand quite heavily in Southeast Asia, and we're hiring quite a lot in the region. We have more than 150 people in the region already, and that number continues to grow quite quickly. The space that we're in is pretty complex. It's very heavily regulated, and you're dealing with people's money, and so it can't just be like an app or a social network where you start building it and getting customers, and then you figure out all the details as you go. You really have to make sure that things are correct all the time while you grow. And so, like I said, we got our start in the United States, but now as we expand in Southeast Asia, Malaysia is only the second country in Southeast Asia where we're launching, and so we've gotten to Malaysia quite soon, and now we're looking at other countries like Indonesia or Vietnam or places like that, which we think could be interesting future areas of expansion.
There's also a conversation that you raised just now, which is it's a heavily regulated industry, and do you think that more conversation is needed with the regulators, including the Central Bank of Malaysia, Bank Negara? How is the relationship like between Stripe and the regulators right now?
Yeah, so we work with regulators in all the regions where we operate. That's been the case in the United States. That's been the case in Europe. And so in the case of Stripe entering Malaysia, we started talking with Bank Negara very early, who have been very constructive to deal with. And I think part of what helps with that always is the fact that from a government point of view and from a Stripe point of view, we tend to have the same aims, right? We want there to be lots of successful tech startups in Malaysia, because that's how Stripe makes money. Is if those companies are competitive, if they grow, if they're selling not just to the local Malaysian market, but if they're selling globally as well, as many of our customers here are, then that's good for the local ecosystem, and that's good for Stripe's business as well. And so I think it helps that we tend to be quite aligned, more so than with other kinds of businesses.
One of the alignment that you speak of is, of course, the reduction of fraud and also the reduction of risk of committing fraud. Those are the two elements that regulators lose sleep over. What has Stripe can bring to the table in terms of improving or limiting the risk of fraud?
You're absolutely right. I think regulators all around the world, certainly here, but anywhere, are thinking about the integrity of the financial system and how we can continue to ensure that stays the case, how we ensure that it's low fraud, how that we ensure that money laundering isn't taking place or something like that. And what Stripe does is we, from the beginning, were designing these systems for internet businesses. We were designing them for to be working at a very large scale. And so what we realized was we can't do things manually, right? You can't just design this system and then tack on the fraud prevention later. And so we've invested very heavily in machine learning, where we can scan all the activity that's taking place on Stripe and then use machine learning to recognize what's a fraudulent activity and prevent that. And so
of course, when you talk about machine learning, you've got to train the system accordingly. You've got to make sure that things that are awkward in the US might be very, I guess, normal here in Malaysia. How do you ensure that over the next few months or over the next few years, the things that are normalized here in Malaysia is being picked up by the AI system that you have, and it's going to ensure that businesses are going to be able to use Stripe and not be hindered by being flagged as fraud and other malicious activities?
You're absolutely right. You have to, first off, you have to ensure that the systems are taking into account that behaviors are different on kind of a country by country basis. And so what might look normal in the United States could be highly abnormal here, or vice versa. And so that's one thing that we already do. We're always looking for specifically what is abnormal behavior in the context, in the country, given this setup, as opposed to trying to do sort of a one-size-fits-all thing. But then, of course, you have an involvement of, you want to have the combination of machines and humans. And so we also, we've for a long time had a very significant compliance department at Stripe. And again, that's something that we have in the region here locally, as well as globally and in the United States. And so you've kind of that combination of, very advanced machine learning systems and the humans to make sure that those systems are doing the right thing.
Yeah, I want to touch a little bit about the rolling out process of Malaysia. You have been in touch with some companies in Malaysia, and they have been using Stripe services since earlier this year. One of them is, of course, Fashion Valet. How has it been like, the journey working with them? What kind of problems did you anticipate happened, didn't happen? The kind of problems that you didn't expect happened, took place?
Yeah, so this is how we tend to develop products when we're launching in new markets. I think it's very dangerous to assume that you have the answers, that you maybe have the right product out of the gate and then just launch it based on that assumption. I think instead you need to start from a position of humility and say, okay, we think this product is probably going to work and solve your problems, but here you go, and now I want to see if it does so. And so from fairly early we're getting some market intelligence that, again, obviously the how people choose to pay in Malaysia is very different to how people do so even in other markets in Southeast Asia, which might kind of on the surface look similar. They're often not. And so that was the biggest thing we were getting feedback on, is does this actually solve the problem for Malaysian businesses of being able to accept money from their customers, both domestically and abroad, and adding in a nice way to accept bank transfers via FPX. That was one example of that.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing about Malaysia is like it's brilliant in the sense that everybody's connected. Over 90% of us are connected to the internet, but the main bulk of the internet businesses are still e-commerce. It's pretty much you ringing up the customers. There's not much innovation coming in from, say, ride-hailing services or subscription services that you mentioned. Do you think that because Stripe is now rolling out in the market, this kind of solves the biggest pain point for innovative businesses to take place? Do you think that there's going to be a lot more Malaysian businesses trying out new business models that wasn't possible before this, particularly when they know that, okay, the payment bit is solved sorted, we can now figure out our business model.
Yeah, we absolutely want to help contribute to that. And so I don't think Stripe can be the only component. I think Stripe is a component there, where if we make it easy to launch a software as a service business, or a subscription company, or a marketplace or something like this, then I think hopefully Stripe can take off a significant amount of the back office work. We can take that away as a concern for the business, and they can focus on, okay, what's actually a compelling product in the market. So I don't think we'll solve everything, but hopefully we can be quite helpful.
Yeah, let's talk about Stripe itself as a company. You've raised billions of dollars, you're a billionaire yourself. It's fantastic to see young entrepreneurs coming about and bring about their businesses overseas. But there's a lot of ongoings right now in Silicon Valley that has involved a lot of problems in terms of tech companies being so big. Mark Zuckerberg's leaked video, leaked audio, actually talking about how he plans to sue the government if Senator Warren takes over. Do you think that tech company is getting too big? Will Stripe ever have that problem, do you think, particularly when there's a lot of tumultuous issues going on in the US right now?
I think you can divide tech companies into camps of, those that are facing I think there's one set of tech companies that are facing scrutiny maybe for valid reasons. They're facing scrutiny because they acted improperly in some way, or some aspect of their business is causing harm to customers or something like that. And so I think sometimes the businesses aren't necessarily facing scrutiny because they're big or anything like that, but because fundamentally the public disagrees with some aspect of what their product is or how they're run. And so in the case of Stripe, we absolutely think about that. Where one, that's kind of what I said, you can't be in this, the mantra of move fast and break things does not work for Stripe, because we're in the business of dealing with people's money, something that's very critical to people's livelihood, and so that's why we proactively engage with regulators around the world and with governments, because we care about doing something that people are in agreement with is a good outcome. And then we think about what is the fundamental outcome of the Stripe product. Is it something that people are happy with? Are people excited about the kinds of businesses that people are building on Stripe? And so I think fundamentally businesses get graded based on their contribution to the world, and so we try to have a good contribution.
There's also the big topic of WeWork. It just spectacularly imploded over the past few weeks, and now there's even conversation of how did we even classify WeWork as a tech company in the first place. Do you think that Stripe will have a problem in terms of identifying yourself as a tech company or a financial services company? Where do you lie in these two categories, or is it something else?
I don't really mind what people call us. We sure build a lot of technology. Like, we sure hire a lot of software engineers, and so if we're not a technology company, I'm not sure what all those people are doing. But no, I mean, jokes aside, technology is really at the core of what we're doing. A very significant fraction of our workforce are software engineers, because the product we offer is an internet service where, again, people are connecting to the wider internet economy, and so that's really at the heart of the product we build.
Okay, so about 60% to 90% of Malaysian businesses are classified as small and medium-sized enterprises, and this, I guess, statistics is about the same elsewhere around the region in Southeast Asia. Is this just plum for the picking? It's ready for you guys to just explode here in Southeast Asia. There's so many things and opportunities that you can actually take upon for this particular market.
Yeah, we're certainly excited about serving the the SMBs that exist already in Malaysia, and so hopefully, if they find the Stripe product useful, we can see significant growth. Maybe they use Stripe to build new lines of business. They launch a product, a subscription service or something that would have been hard to launch before, or they use Stripe to expand internationally. But we also spend a lot of time thinking about the businesses that don't exist yet, and so it's easy to fixate on the current set that we have. But again, ideally, if we're doing our job right, Stripe can make launching an internet business easier, such that more people actually choose to go do it. Because the raw talent here is incredible. You have so many smart people, so many people with maybe a strong point of view on what products don't exist but should, and those are the people also that we'd like to enable.
Do you think that the time for investors to come in is still there, backing multi-billion-dollar companies like yourselves? I mean, you're funded by Sequoia Capital, Y Combinator, many others that we know, Sandhill Boys, as they call it. Do you think that it's time for them to start investing their billions in this part of the world in terms of finding, concrete companies? Take the idea that Silicon Valley normally uses, but just apply it here. There's so many companies to invest here. Do you think now is the time?
I think we're already starting to see that a significant number of Western firms and firms from all over realizing that the growth in Southeast Asia, in the internet economy, in the general Southeast Asian economies is really exciting, and you're starting to see that in the technology companies that are springing up. And I think the investors tend to catch on to that pretty
Let's talk about China a little bit. Are you worried about the trade war with China?
We are mostly in the internet world. It's not really, the things that tariffs are posed on are not really anything to do with our product. Some of our customers are affected depending on what they sell. But also, if you just zoom out, we think long-term cross-border trade is increasing. I would bet that over a 10, 20-year horizon, cross-border trade continues to increase, and certainly to increase around the world. There's some strife right now between the US and China in particular, but between so many other countries, those trade flows just continue to increase. And so we're making a big bet on cross-border trade.
Okay, with that in mind, because that is very much in tandem with what the business direction is in Malaysia as well, we want to be aggressive in terms of our export market. Do you think that because of this, there's some alignment into what we want with what the world wants, and therefore there's a lot more cross-border trade happening in the near term? And do you think that payment services like Stripe would just enjoy this kind of boom?
I would certainly hope so. Again, in that we think that the Malaysian exports could probably be significantly larger than they are today, and people I think tend to think of exports in terms of steel and raw materials and things like this. But of course, digital exports and intellectual property could be a very significant sector of the economy as well.
All right. Final question: what's the concrete steps that we can expect from Stripe in Malaysia in the coming months?
So I think it's growing the product and making it better for businesses in the region, growing the amount of business on it. We're already, in our testing period, we've already gotten to $1 million a month in $1 million US a month in payment volume handled on behalf of all the businesses running on Stripe. We'd like to significantly grow that, and we think probably the product will have to continue to evolve to do so. But hopefully you'll see lots of engagement for us, many more Malaysian businesses running on Stripe, and that's the plan.
All right. Congratulations on opening the business here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Really nice to meet you.
Thank you.